We get breaking news from the Montreal Canadiens that Patrik Laine is set to make his season debut, and this changes absolutely everything for the Canadiens going into the rest of the season. We're going to break all this down, his possible line combinations, and more later on this episode. Before we start, I just want to give a huge shout out and say this video is brought to you by Rentals.ca. While they've been supporting our national team defend their home ice in international competition, they've also been helping thousands of Canadians find their home rink all across the country. Whether in cities like St. John's, Montreal, Quebec City, Vancouver, Calgary, Halifax, from coast to coast, Rentals.ca has a ton of options to help you find the perfect place and price for you.
Their website is clean and easy to use, and you can pinpoint exactly on the map where you want to move, finding all the options in your area. Find your home rink in rentals.ca.
Yeah, shout out to Rentals.ca. But Darius, let's just hop straight into the biggest topic in the NHL right now, which is the fact that Patrik Laine is back and making his debut with the Montreal Canadiens. Now, looking at Patrik Laine, it has been a long anticipated debut. We've seen he played last with the Columbus Blue Jackets in 23-24, where he only played 18 games. His last game was against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he did score a goal. The Columbus won 6-5. But looking at the fact that Patrik Laine hasn't played in almost a full year, 355 days, this is quite exciting news for not only Montreal Canadiens fans, but fans around the league. Darius, just looking at Laine coming back, what's your first initial thoughts on all of this?
Well, listen, no matter how you feel about the Montreal Canadiens, I think this is a really, really good thing. This is a guy who, after everything that's happened over the last year or so, came into this training camp and all reports were saying that he's happy to be back at the rink and he was excited to play hockey again. And he's an exciting hockey player. When he's on, this guy is electric. He has one of the best shots in the entire NHL, and he's one of the best scorers, again, when he's on in the entire NHL. So for him to be back playing, I think this is a good thing for the league. And obviously, it changes a lot for the Montreal Canadiens. They could absolutely use some scoring. They could use some shots on goal recently. They have not been playing well. So adding him back into the lineup is really going to lengthen the lineup. First of all, we'll get into that later in the video, but it's just going to add some more juice to everyone's legs too. I think everyone should be feeling good coming into this game, specifically against the Islanders. The Islanders are a team who are struggling as well. So, maybe not as much as the Montreal Canadiens over the last, handful of games, but I think this is going to be a boost to the Montreal Canadiens lineup. And again, they need goal scoring. That's the reason they went out and got this guy. And if he comes back and he has the right, mindset and attitude, I think that the sky's the limit for a guy like Patrik Laine. He's still young, right? He was only drafted a couple years ago still at this point. So, I think he's going to have a great season again this year, and he's going to be playing with some pretty good players that I think are motivated to get it done. And again, I think that everything's going to go to their legs.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Laine, you said it best. This is a goal scorer. This was a guy that came into the NHL competing against Austin Matthews as debatably the best goal scorer, not only from this draft class, but in the entire NHL. We've seen him have 44 goal seasons with the Winnipeg Jets. We've seen him join Columbus, scoring almost 30 goals or over 20 goals in every season he played with them. Getting Patrik Laine back in this roster, getting him back, and he did have a quote, "It's almost been a year since my last real game. I'm most excited finally to get things over with. Just be back on the ice with the guys. So happy, I'm just happy about it." Sorry if I read that completely wrong. It's an early morning. But looking at Patrik Laine returning to this roster, this is huge for the Canadiens, as like you said, it adds goal scoring, it adds more depth, and we do see from Habs on Reddit, they said Patrik Laine at Habs practice day on a line with Kirby Dach and Slav. Now looking at this, do you think this is a line that could legitimately compete as one of the top second lines in the NHL?
I think there's potential there. I really like Kirby Dach back at center. I think that they had to put him on the wing because of the dynamic of the team at the time, and he wasn't getting it done at center. But I think that, a lot of people forget he's still a young player in the league. So I think he has to play center and continue to play center. He's a big body up the middle too. So him being back at center with a guy like Laine, I think they're going to feed off of each other. Slav, again, hasn't had the greatest season this year. Like, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you probably want more out of your first overall pick from a couple of years ago. But this could be something that gets him going, right? Like, if he's able to feed the puck to Laine, Laine can put the puck in the back of the net from almost anywhere on the ice. Like, this guy is lethal. So to have that line rolling together, I wouldn't touch the first line the way that they are right now. I think Suzuki's a great player, and obviously I wouldn't put him with Laine. I think Caulfield being, put up on the first line as well is great as well. He's having a really good season in terms of goal scoring, but adding another threat there on the second line is fantastic. And I think it's only going to help. Again, I was talking about, the energy and the juice going to everyone's legs. Like I think Doc and Slafkovsky are going to have extra motivation playing with this guy to get him on the board and obviously get going themselves. So I think it's a good dynamic. And again, it lengthens the lineup. Just one guy being added into the lineup changes roles around. You put Doc back on center where I think he should be, and everyone kind of gets pushed down a little bit. So I think it's very interesting. Newhook being taken off center as well and being put up on the first line is interesting as well. So it's going to be an interesting game to watch for the Montreal Canadiens to see if anything changes in terms of the dynamic, because they need something to change right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this team, and they haven't said if the power play lines are set yet, but it does seem like there's a chance with Laine hopping straight into this top six that we might see him hop straight onto that top power play. If not, at the very least, he will be making the second power play unit. This is a guy that's going to come in, put an immediate impact, scoring goals, setting teammates up. Laine is no slouch when it comes to setting up assists either. He is known as a goal scorer, but he's not just a pure goal scorer. This is still a big body that can make an impact on not both ends of the ice. I'm not going to say Patrik Laine is going to go out and be Patrice Bergeron, but looking at Laine, he can use the size. He can use the size for scoring goals and disrupting a tiny bit of plays. But looking at this, we also did get a tweet from Kirby Doc a quote from Kirby Doc on Patrik Laine saying it's kind of like an early Christmas present. And I couldn't agree anymore. This does seem like an early Christmas present for a lot of fans around the NHL. As we said, the impact of Laine in the NHL is something that everyone liked to watch. Watching him score goals, watching him set up nasty assists. This guy was electric to watch, and finally getting him back, even if you're a Leafs fan, even if you're a fan of the Boston Bruins, watching Patrik Laine get back on the ice is exciting from his standpoint and from a fan standpoint. Darius, do you think he could go out and still score 20 goals this season after missing a majority of the past year?
I think that's the goal. I think he wants to get back to playing. Obviously, he wanted to get back to 100%, but I think he wants to get back to playing the caliber of hockey that we know him to play. He's a guy who scored 40 goals in the league before, so I see no reason for him to score at least 20. Yes, he's missed, a little bit of the season here, about 20, somewhere in the 20 to 25 game range, but I think he can get right back on track here, getting back into the lineup. And I think the Montreal Canadiens, the other thing they've been dealing with is a lack of identity as a whole, as a team, right? They haven't really found that yet. It's just a couple pieces that make up a lineup at this point in time. But I think adding him back into the lineup could potentially give them some identity because it lengthens the rest of the lineup. So I wonder if that's something that they'll struggle less with him back in the lineup and adding scoring, because other guys, I think the pressure comes off maybe Kirby Doc a little bit too. Like he was looked upon as, why isn't this guy scoring? Let's put him on the wing. Maybe he can get scoring. But now it's like, okay, Patrik Laine should be scoring, right? And maybe there's a little bit less pressure on a guy like that, and he can, pay closer attention to detail in different parts of the ice, and maybe they'll build up an identity that way. So everyone kind of has their role to play. And so I think that's going to be interesting to watch as well. But yeah, I think, Mark, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if you think he can score, 30 goals maybe even this year, but I think that he's a guy that, all signs were pointing to him, to start the season, that he was happy to be back at the rink. He was happy to be back playing hockey. He was excited to do it. And when you're feeling like that, the goals are going to follow. Your game is going to follow. So I don't know how you feel about that personally, but I think that, 20, 25 goals, I think is easy for Patrik Laine this season.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Laine and his production from previous seasons, I do think 30 goals is just going to be a situation where he could do this with the team. And I like you bringing up identity. Looking at Laine coming in, we're going to see the Habs team finally be fully healthy. I mean, we missed out on Laine to start the year, but even a small piece like this could be the difference on the Habs going on a bit of a run. I'm not going to say the Habs are going to win the championship, and they could, and this video could fly around the internet once they do. But looking at this team, getting Laine back, it's going to make a huge impact on this roster, and everyone around the league is happy to see Laine return. But what are you guys' thoughts on this? What do you think Laine is going to put up in his first game? Do you think it's going to be a hat trick, or do you think he might go out and just score one goal? Let us know down in the comments. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode maybe today, so keep your eyes out for that. And once again, we want to give a huge shout out to Rentals for helping support not only this channel, but you guys find your next home. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.